So in this video, we're going to pop the first item off of the linked list. So it's going to look like this, and we're going to move head over like this and remove this, and of course return it. And then we have a couple of edge cases. One, if we have one item in the linked list, this is similar to when we popped an item off of the other end, that we have an edge case for when we have one item. And then we have another edge case for when we don't have any items in the linked list. So if you want to code this, go ahead and pause the video here. Otherwise, we'll get into the code. So we'll say pop first. And then this situation here where we don't have any items in the linked list, we will code for this one first. We'll say if the length is equal to 0, we're going to return none. So now let's look at when we have 2 or more items in the list and write the code for that. And we are removing that first node there. In order to return that, we have to have something pointing at it. So we'll call that temp. And we'll say temp equals self.head. Then we're going to want to move head over. So we'll set that equal to head.next. And that'll move that over. We do that with this line of code. Head equals head.next. Then we want to remove that 11 from the list like this and have that be equal to none. So we'll say temp.next equals none. And that removes that from the list. So then we'll decrement the length by 1. And this brings up our edge case for when we have one item in the list to start with. So let's just walk through this like we did on the other end of the list when we were removing an item. So we have temp is equal to self.head like this. And then we'll say head is equal to head.next. Well, head.next is none. So that just sets head equal to none, which is what we do want. And then temp.next equals none. Well, temp.next is already none, so that doesn't do anything. So we'll remove that. And then I'll remove the variable as well, like that. And then we decrement the length by 1. It was 1, and now the length is 0. But tail is still pointing at that one node. So we need to have tail also point to none. So we'll say if the length is 0, we'll have tail be set equal to none, and that solves that problem. Let's look at this end with the rest of our code. Okay, so let's walk through this. This is when we have 0 items in the linked list. It's length equals 0. We have another length is equal to 0 here, but it is after we have decremented the length by 1. So that second if statement applies when you started with one item. Now the only thing left to do is return temp, which is the item that we removed from the linked list. So we'll look at this code in a moment in VS Code, and we will start with a linked list that looks like this. Remember, we have 3 scenarios that we coded for. One with 2 items on the list. We need to make sure that that works, so we'll remove that. And then we need to make sure it works when we have 1 item in the list. And then, of course, when we don't have any items on the list, we want it to return none. So let's flip over to VS Code. So there is the pop first method that we just created. And then this creates that linked list with a 2 and a 1. And then we'll print that out. Okay, so there is our linked list with a 2 and a 1. And then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to remove this print list line here. Then I'm going to paste in a few lines of code here. So this is just going to run the pop first method 3 times and print out the results. So we're going to do that with the 2 items, the 1 item, and the 0 items. And we'll run this. Okay, and you can see up here that this printed out our 2 nodes, and then finally it returned none. And just like we did with the pop method, I'm going to come up here and put temp.value here. And you don't want to keep it that way. You always want to return the entire node, but to test it, we'll just return the value to make sure we're getting the right values. And there is 2, 1, and none. That's exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to come back up here and remove the dot value to put it back the way that it should be. And that is our method for pop first.